Your roadmap to the latest in auto? Welcome to Highway Herald. Today we're shifting gears from horsepower to petropower as Canada drops a seismic announcement. It may reroute its oil exports away from the US and steer them toward Europe. With Trump-era tariffs back in play and fiery rhetoric over trade, narcotics, and sovereignty hitting the accelerator, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has put the pedal to the metal. Is this political hot air or the green light for a transatlantic energy alliance? Strap in. We're about to unpack what's under the hood of North America's energy future. Now let's break down the power plays, dependencies, and tariff skirmishes fueling this showdown. Number 5. Alberta's power play, revving up energy diplomacy. At the epicenter of this cross-border clash is the sparring match between Premier Danielle Smith and US President Trump. In an effort to erase America's trade deficit, Trump slammed the brakes on Canada with hefty tariffs and public jabs at its trade practices. Smith countered by reminding Washington that Alberta pumps roughly 2 million barrels of oil per day, and it doesn't have to hand them over to the US. She pointed to existing arteries, 700,000 BPD flowing to the Gulf Coast and up to 1.2 million BPD via the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Her message was clear. US refineries, tuned for heavy crude, depend on Canadian supply, and if push comes to shove, Alberta can simply shift into global markets. Smith also stressed that Alberta isn't just an oil field, it's a vault of critical minerals and uranium, the raw materials driving the world's energy transition. But Alberta's bold stance only highlights just how reliant the US has become on Canadian energy. Number 4. US refineries, running on Canadian fuel. Despite America's own drilling boom, US refineries, especially along the Gulf Coast, are built to process Canada's dense, heavy crude. In 2023, Canada supplied about 60% of all US oil imports, a lifeline for states from Montana and North Dakota to Michigan. Beyond black gold, the US tapped over 11,000 gigawatt-hours of Canadian electricity last year. Any abrupt throttle down of these cross-border flows could spike pump prices, choke industrial output, and even test grid reliability. Swapping in alternative sources, Venezuelan heavy crude with its political potholes or Middle Eastern barrels laden with geopolitical baggage, means rerouting supply chains at great cost. American drivers in the Midwest and Northeast could face sticker shock and potential fuel shortages if Canadian oil traffic slows to a crawl. And while oil and electricity are critical, they're just one part of the high-stakes puzzle. Next up, the tariffs that are jolting the trade lanes. Before we delve deeper, we'd appreciate it if you could subscribe to Highway Herald. Your support fuels our passion to create more content like this. Now let's explore number 3, tariff tussles, steering toward trade turmoil. What began as a narrow tariff dispute has morphed into a full-blown trade roadblock. Early in 2025, Trump's administration reimposed 25% duties on Canadian steel, aluminum, vehicles, and dairy, citing drug trafficking, job protection, and trade imbalances. Ottawa fired back with reciprocal levies and a WTO complaint, making it clear Canada won't be run off the road. Trump's barbs, calling Canada the 51st state and claiming it lives off US protection, only revved up Canadian nationalism. Meanwhile, new US global tariffs of 10% on all imports and 25% on auto parts threaten to stall the North American automotive assembly line. Manufacturers on both sides are delaying investment, and farm machinery supply chains are feeling ripple effects from rural Canada to America's heartland. With energy now a geopolitical clutch, the engine of North American cooperation may be idling. But if Canada is looking to avoid this pileup, where can it turn? Europe just might be waving the checkered flag. Number 2, turning toward Europe, tactical trade shift or full-on pivot. With tensions climbing between Ottawa and Washington, Canada isn't idling. It's shifting gears. The European Union, cutting ties with Russian energy, is quickly becoming a prime destination for Canadian oil. Premier Danielle Smith's outreach to Europe and India isn't just political posturing, it's the early stages of a realignment. Canada already has a head start with CETA, the trade agreement smoothing cooperation with EU markets. For Europe, Alberta offers what they crave: a stable democracy, rich natural resources, and climate-conscious leadership. It's more than a business deal. It's a values-driven alliance in the making. And this isn't just about escaping US volatility, it's about future-proofing. With American politics increasingly unpredictable, Canada's diversifying to stay in control of its own economic fate. That diversification isn't just strategy, it's a statement. Numbers back the move. According to Breakaway advisors, Canadian crude exports to Europe doubled in early 2025, peaking at 8 million barrels in March. As EU nations look to replace Middle Eastern and Russian supplies, Alberta's energy is starting to fill the gap. Which brings us to the finish line. Canada's leverage is real, but will it be enough to change the course of cross-border relations? Number 1. Canada's leverage play, a defining moment for cross-border trade? The turbocharged question remains. Will Canada's energy leverage force Washington into a policy U-turn? Or are we witnessing a broader reshuffling of global energy alliances? Canada's got torque in all the right places: abundant crude, critical minerals, hydropower, and uranium. It's a powerhouse portfolio, but flexing too hard could backfire. Washington might see these moves not as strategy, but as betrayal. That could spark more tariffs or even political backlash. Still, the message coming out of Ottawa is unmistakable. Canada's done playing the polite passenger. Whether through building bridges to Europe or doubling down on energy exports, it's asserting its place at the negotiating table, not just as a junior partner, but as a driver of policy. Bloomberg analysts recently suggested Canada may be angling for the best of both worlds, maintaining energy influence in the US while accelerating diversification in Europe. It's a high-speed balancing act, no doubt, but one that could pay off, if played skillfully. That said, a Trump-led White House may not take kindly to this two-lane strategy. If things escalate, we might see a diplomatic pileup with long-lasting consequences. Final stretch. Calculated move or full-throttle breakaway? Canada isn't just rattling the can, it's rolling into a whole new lane. Whether this shift is a strategic recalibration or a full-throttle breakaway, it's already rippling across global oil markets, trade routes, and diplomatic circles. The era of quiet energy cooperation with the US appears to be over. With Europe opening its arms to Canadian crude and the US slapping on tariffs, Ottawa is taking control of its own trade destiny. Canada's leadership isn't just responding, it's steering with intent, realigning where its energy flows and how it asserts influence on the global stage. So what's your take on all of this? Is Canada's oil play a strategic masterstroke or a high-stakes gamble? Could Europe realistically replace the US as a long-term energy partner? Are we watching the birth of a new global energy order, and can Canada handle it? Does diversification make Canada stronger, or could it backfire diplomatically? And how might these moves ripple through North America's auto and fuel sectors? Let us know where you stand in the comments. Your perspective fuels this conversation as much as any barrel of oil. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at Highway Herald for more deep dives into the world of vehicles, energy, and the shifting gears of global trade. Thanks for riding with us today. Until next time, stay curious and keep your engine humming. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's more exciting and informative content waiting for you.